When the jazz stopped for her, it wasn't because the band forgot the song. It was because every powerful man in that New Orleans ballroom knew one thing. Mara Vale did not. Cole Mercer had just chosen her. She came to the wedding, hoping to stay invisible, wearing a copper satin dress that caught too much light, holding champagne she never meant to drink. Outside, rain pressed against the Garden District windows. Inside, old money smiled over old sins, and Mara felt the same cage she had spent 3 years running from. But one look from the most dangerous man in the city would turn her quiet life into a battlefield of desire, control, loyalty, and choice. Stay with this story because some love doesn't save you softly. It changes what survival means. Like the video and comment where you're watching from. Mara left the wedding before the cake was cut, but Cole Mercer's eyes followed her farther than the mansion gates. The valet handed her the keys with both hands, as if he knew her name meant something and did not want to be caught treating it lightly. Mara thanked him, slipped into her old silver Honda, and sat there for a moment with the engine off. Through the windshield, the Garden District mansion glowed behind iron gates and wet oak branches. Music had started again inside, soft jazz spilling through the open doors, but it sounded different now. Slower, lower, like the band had learned fear and decided to play around it. Her hands shook when she reached for the ignition. She hated that. She had spent 3 years teaching her body not to react to rooms like that. 3 years learning how to sit in normal coffee shops, laugh with normal friends, argue about invoices and paint colors and grocery prices. 3 years building a life where nobody lowered their voice when her father walked in. Then one man in a black suit had stepped beneath a chandelier, and all of it had cracked. Mara pulled away from the curb and drove without turning on the radio. New Orleans passed in fragments. Gas lamps trembling in the French Quarter. A couple arguing beneath a balcony wrapped in iron lace. A streetcar groaning down St. Charles like an old animal too tired to die. Rain had not fallen yet, but the air carried the warning of it. Thick clouds pressed low over the city, turning the streetlights into halos. By the time she reached the highway toward Baton Rouge, her phone had buzzed 6 times. Evan. She let every call go unanswered. She could still hear his voice at the wedding, low and urgent, beside her ear. Do not look at him again. As if a warning could erase the moment it named. Mara drove with both hands on the wheel, her copper dress pooling around her knees like spilled fire. She had chosen it because Lydia begged her not to come dressed like she was attending a funeral. She had wanted to honor her cousin. That was all. One night, back in the family orbit. One night of smiles, champagne, and careful exits. But her family never allowed simple things to remain simple. The Vale name had always been heavy. Even when Mara was a child, before she understood what her father did, she knew the name changed the air. Teachers became polite in a nervous way. Restaurant owners found tables that had not existed a moment earlier. Police officers smiled too quickly. Men with money shook Warren Vale's hand with the stiffness of people touching a live wire. Warren called it respect. Mara knew better by 13. By 16, she knew enough not to ask why men came to dinner with bruised faces and left with envelopes under their jackets. By 19, she knew which rooms in her father's house were for family and which were for business. By 22, she understood that business meant river contracts, private security gambling rooms, city favors, and debts collected in ways no one described over breakfast. Her father never raised his voice at home. That was one of the things people misunderstood about cruel men. They imagined shouting broken glass fists on tables. Warren Vale was worse than that. He could end a conversation with silence. He could make disobedience feel like a childish misunderstanding. He could look at Mara's paintings drying in the sunroom and say, without anger, "Pretty things are not a life." She had believed him for too long. That was the part she hated most. She had gone to design school because it was the compromise she could survive. Not painting, not the wild, impractical thing she loved. Design was useful. Design had clients, invoices, deadlines function. It let her make beauty inside rules someone else understood. Her father had approved with a nod as if she had finally learned the correct size of her own hunger. Then the summer after graduation, Warren brought a man named Caleb Ross to Sunday dinner. Caleb was handsome in a polished, empty way. His family controlled trucking routes through Mississippi and parts of Alabama. He laughed too loudly at Warren's jokes and watched Mara like he had already been told where she would fit in his future house. After dessert, Warren asked Mara to walk with him in the courtyard. The night smelled of jasmine and cigar smoke. Men spoke softly behind closed doors. Her father stood beside the fountain with his hands in his pockets and told her the Ross family could offer stability. Mara remembered the water making soft sounds against the stone. She remembered asking stability for who Warren's eyes had cooled. For everyone. That was the closest he ever came to saying she was being placed on the board. 3 weeks later, Mara packed 2 suitcases while the house slept. Evan found her at the back staircase. He had not stopped her. That was the only reason she forgave him for staying. "Take cash," he whispered, pressing an envelope into her hand. "I don't want his money. It's mine. You got it from him. Mara, please." She took it because his eyes were wet and because pride did not pay security deposits. Then she kissed his cheek, walked out through the kitchen, and left the Vale house before dawn. She built her new life slowly. Baton Rouge was close enough to Louisiana that she could still smell home in the air, but far enough from New Orleans that people did not immediately connect her face to her father's name. She rented a small apartment above a bakery on a street lined with old brick buildings and uneven sidewalks. The apartment had narrow stairs, exposed pipes, a bathroom window that stuck in the summer heat and sunlight that crossed the living room floor every morning at 9. It was the first place that had ever felt like hers. Her kitchen table became her office. Her laptop had 2 missing keys. Her first clients paid late. Her second client cried when Mara showed her the new logo for her flower shop. And Mara cried too afterward alone in her car because she had made something beautiful and nobody had called it useless. She learned normal things. How to compare grocery prices. How to unclog her own sink. How to sit at a bar with women who complained about dating apps and bad bosses instead of family alliances and sealed records. Her friends knew her as Mara Vale freelance designer coffee addict. Terrible plant owner woman with excellent taste and suspiciously few childhood stories. She liked that version of herself. She protected that version. So the morning after Lydia's wedding, when she woke to sunlight leaking through cheap curtains and the smell of cinnamon from the bakery downstairs, she tried to pretend New Orleans had already folded itself back into memory. She made coffee. She opened her laptop. She stared at a half-finished branding proposal for a family-owned bookstore and read the same sentence 9 times. Cole Mercer's eyes remained behind every word. At noon, Evan called again. This time she answered. "You got home?" he asked. "No, I'm still standing in the ballroom waiting for more advice." He exhaled. "Don't do that. Do it act like I scared you for fun." Mara leaned back in her chair and looked at the rosemary plant dying on her windowsill. "You told me to leave my cousin's wedding because a man looked at me. Because that man was Cole Mercer. You keep saying his name like it explains everything. It does to anyone who wants to stay alive." Mara closed her eyes. What did he want with dad business? What kind? The kind you left so you wouldn't have to know. That's convenient. It's honest. A delivery truck rattled past outside, shaking the old window glass. Mara lowered her voice, though she was alone. "Did he ask about me?" Evan did not answer. That was answer enough. Her stomach tightened. What did he ask Mara? What did he ask? A pause. Then Evan said, "Your name, where you lived, whether you were still working as a designer." Heat crawled up her neck. "And you told him. You think Cole Mercer needs me to find out where you live? Did you tell him I gave him less than he already knew?" Mara stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "That is not an answer. It's the only one I have." She walked to the window. Below, the bakery owner was setting a chalkboard sign on the sidewalk. A student in a baseball cap passed with headphones on. A woman pushed a stroller beneath the striped awning. The world looked ordinary, and that suddenly felt fragile. "Stay away from him," Evan said. Mara laughed once without humor. "He's in New Orleans. I'm in Baton Rouge. That should be easy." Mara: "What you left the family, but men like Cole don't think in city limits." She hung up before he could hear her breathing change. For the rest of the day, she tried to work. She changed fonts. She adjusted spacing. She sent an invoice. She answered a client who wanted the color palette to feel more trustworthy, but also more fun, which made no sense and was exactly the kind of problem she used to enjoy. At 5, she walked to her favorite coffee shop with her laptop under one arm. The place was crowded with students and nurses from the clinic nearby. The espresso machine screamed. Someone had spilled sugar near the pickup counter. A man by the window read a newspaper, which was strange enough to catch her attention because no one under 70 read a newspaper in public anymore. He wore a gray suit. Not flashy, not local, too still. Mara looked away. Her pulse did not. She ordered a latte and waited near the counter. The man turned a page. He did not look at her. That made the hair at the back of her neck rise. When she left, he stayed. She told herself she was being ridiculous. 2 blocks later, she saw the black SUV. It moved slowly past the coffee shop, then stopped at the curb as she crossed the street. The windows were tinted dark enough to reflect the sky. Mara kept walking. Her apartment was 5 minutes away, 4 if she moved fast, 3 if she ran. She did not run. Running admitted something. At the bakery door, she glanced back. The SUV was gone. Inside her apartment, she locked both locks, then stood with her back against the door and listened. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator, a pipe knocking somewhere in the wall, the muffled laugh of the baker downstairs. Her phone rang 2 minutes later. Unknown number. Mara stared at it until the screen went dark. Then it rang again. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, you walk faster when you're frightened." Cole Mercer. The room seemed to shrink around her. Mara's grip tightened on the phone. "You're watching me." Yes, no denial, no polished excuse, just the word clean and cold. "That's supposed to make me feel better." "No, it's supposed to keep you from wondering." "I wasn't wondering. I was hoping I'd imagined it." "You didn't." Mara looked toward the window but did not move closer. "How did you get this number?" "You already asked yourself that. I'm asking you." A brief silence. Then he said, "Your landlord is cooperative when properly motivated." The sentence landed like a hand against her chest. "You spoke to my landlord. I own the building through a company that owns another company. He mostly speaks to my accountant." Mara's apartment, her sunlight, her narrow stairs, the place she had chosen because it was small and plain, and hers shifted beneath her. "You own my building. Indirectly. That is not better. I didn't say it was." She almost laughed because the honesty was obscene. "What do you want from me to hear your voice without a room full of frightened men between us? You could have sent a normal message." I considered it. And then chose stalking, I chose certainty. Mara pressed her free hand against her stomach. "Mr. Mercer." "Cole." "No." A pause. She heard something in the background on his end. Low voices, glass, maybe music. He was somewhere expensive, somewhere guarded. Somewhere he could make calls like this and not care who listened. "You should be more afraid than angry," he said. "I'm managing both." This time he did laugh, soft and surprised. There she is. Mara hated the warmth that flickered through her at the sound, hated it so much she sharpened her voice. "You don't know me. I know you left Warren Vale with 2 suitcases and less money than you should have taken. I know you build brands for people who have no idea your father could buy their whole block before breakfast. I know you still paint sometimes, but only on small canvases because large ones feel like a confession. I know your rosemary plant is dying because you overwater it." Mara stopped breathing. Across the room, the rosemary plant leaned pitifully toward the glass. "Get out of my life," she whispered. "I'm not in it yet. You're in my building. You're in my phone. You're in my coffee shop." "Yes," he said. "And I'm asking for dinner before I become more impolite." The fear in her chest twisted into fury. "No. I'll send a car tomorrow night at 8. I said no. I heard you." "Then listen better." "I am listening very carefully, Mara." The way he said her name was quiet, almost intimate, as if he had placed it on his tongue and decided it belonged there. She closed her eyes. "No car, no dinner, no men outside my apartment, no more calls. Wear something that feels like you," he said. "Not something chosen to survive your father's world." The line went dead. For a long time, Mara stood in the middle of her living room with the phone still against her ear. Then she called Evan. He answered immediately. "He contacted you." She swallowed. "He owns my building." On the other end, Evan cursed under his breath. "He wants dinner tomorrow," she said. "Go." The word was so wrong she thought she had misheard him. "What?" "Go to dinner. Have you lost your mind?" "No. I'm trying to keep you alive." Mara laughed, but it came out thin. "You told me to stay away from him." "I told you that before he decided distance was optional. He can decide whatever he wants. I'm not property, I know that. Does he?" Evan was silent. Mara sat slowly on the edge of the couch. Finally, her brother said, "Cole Mercer does not react like other men. If you refuse, he may respect it, or he may take it as a puzzle. I don't know which one is worse. I could call the police. You could." The emptiness in his voice answered that idea. Mara looked at the cheap rug beneath her feet, the one she had bought second-hand because the apartment echoed without it. "What is he like?" Evan breathed out. "Calm." That's the thing people miss. Warren is careful because he has to manage old loyalties. Cole is calm because he believes the room will rearrange itself around him eventually. And it usually does. That's not a personality. No, it's a warning. The next day passed in pieces. Mara worked because panic did not pay rent. She met a client at 10 and somehow discussed packaging design while a black SUV sat half a block away. She ate half a sandwich at 1. She changed clothes 4 times between 6 and 7:30. The copper dress from the wedding hung over the back of a chair like evidence. She did not touch it. At 7:50, she settled on black wide-leg pants, an ivory silk blouse, and small gold hoops. Professional. Neutral. Hers. At exactly 8, a black sedan stopped outside the bakery. The driver did not knock. He simply waited beside the open rear door. Mara stood at her window and watched him for nearly a minute. Then she picked up her coat. The drive to New Orleans felt longer than it was. The driver did not speak. The city rose out of the dark slowly, first in lights, then in bridges, then in the old shape of streets that remembered too much. The car stopped behind the Blue Heron, a French Quarter restaurant with no sign on the back door and 2 men standing beneath a green awning. One of them opened her door. "Miss Vale." She stepped out. "Does everyone know my name?" He did not answer. Inside the restaurant was all velvet shadows and gold light. The public dining room hummed with money forks against china. Low-laughter wine poured without labels being shown. Mara followed the man through a narrow hallway to a private room at the back. Cole Mercer stood when she entered. That single movement unsettled her. Men like him did not have to be polite, which meant the politeness was intentional. He wore a charcoal suit tonight, no tie, white shirt open at the throat. In the softer light, the scar beneath his eye looked less like a flaw and more like punctuation. "Mara," he said. "Mr. Mercer." His mouth curved. "Still punishing me. I came to dinner with a man who had me followed. I think I'm being generous. You are." She had not expected agreement. A small table had been set for two. Candles burned low. There were no windows, no visible guards. That did not mean they were alone. Mara remained standing. "I want to be clear," she said. "I'm here because you made it difficult not to be." Cole stepped back and gestured to the chair. "No. You're here because difficult did not stop you." She sat because standing any longer felt like giving him too much information. Dinner came in courses she barely tasted: turtle soup, gulf fish, a salad with citrus and herbs. Cole poured wine but did not push it toward her. He asked if she wanted coffee instead. That surprised her enough to answer honestly. "Yes." He ordered it without comment. For several minutes they spoke like strangers forced into civility. The weather, Lydia's wedding, Baton Rouge, New Orleans traffic. Then Cole asked what made a logo last. Mara blinked. "Excuse me, a logo, a brand. You design them. What makes one last?" She expected mockery. There was none. So she answered. "Clarity," she said. "Restraint. Most people want to say everything at once. The strongest designs know what to leave out." Cole watched her with unsettling focus. The empty space matters, sometimes more than the mark itself. His eyes lowered to the table, thoughtful. Power works that way. Mara let out a small breath. "Of course you'd say that. Does that make it untrue?" She looked at him across the candlelight. "No." Something shifted then, not softened. Shifted. He asked about her clients, her apartment. Why design instead of painting? She should not have answered that last one. But the room was warm and the coffee was strong, and Cole Mercer listened like interruption was beneath him. "My father thought painting was useless," she said. "Design was the compromise. A compromise with him or with yourself." The question found a bruise. Mara set down her cup. "You ask personal questions for someone who refuses normal boundaries." "I'm better with questions than boundaries. At least you know. I know many of my sins, and ignore them." His gaze held hers. Not always. The honesty again. Quiet. Almost worse than charm. When dinner ended, Cole walked her to the back entrance. The alley beyond was damp with mist, the stones shining under old lamps. His car waited at the curb. He did not touch her. Mara found herself aware of that in a way that irritated her. At the open car door she turned. "Was this supposed to make me less afraid of you?" "No." "Then what was the point?" Cole looked at her for a long moment, his face half in shadow. "To make sure your fear had accurate information." Her pulse moved strangely. "That may be the most unsettling thing anyone has ever said to me. I can do worse. I'm sure." For the first time, his smile reached his eyes. Then it was gone. "I won't call tomorrow," he said. "Good. I won't send a car either. Even better. If you want to see me again, you'll find a reason." Mara gave him a steady look. "And if I don't?" Cole's expression remained calm, but something darker moved underneath it. Then I'll spend some time pretending I can accept that. The driver closed the door between them. As the car pulled away, Mara looked back through the tinted glass. Cole stood beneath the green awning, motionless in the mist, watching until the street turned and the restaurant disappeared behind brick gaslight and rain. For 4 days, Cole Mercer did exactly what he said he would do. Nothing. No calls. No black sedans outside the bakery. No gray-suited men pretending not to watch her through coffee shop windows. No unknown numbers lighting up her phone after midnight. Mara told herself she was relieved. She told herself that several times a day, usually when she checked her phone for no reason at all. On Monday morning, she sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold beside her laptop. A bakery in Lafayette wanted a new brand identity. Something warm, but elevated, modern, but Southern, familiar, but not old-fashioned. Normally, she would have loved the challenge. She would have played with soft script fonts, sketched wheat stalks in the margins of her notebook, built a color palette from browned butter and cream. Instead, she stared at a blank artboard and thought about a man standing beneath a green awning in the rain. She hated the memory because it refused to behave like fear. Fear should have been sharp, clean, useful. This was something else. This was a hand hovering near a flame. By Wednesday, her friends had noticed. At lunch, Jenna from the print studio leaned across the table and narrowed her eyes. "You're somewhere else." Mara stabbed at her salad. "I'm right here. Your body is here. Your eyes are in another zip code." I had a weird weekend. Family weird or man weird. Mara almost laughed. In her life, those two categories had never stayed separate. "Family," she said. Jenna accepted that because she knew enough not to push. Mara had trained her friends gently over the years, feeding them pieces of truth small enough to digest. Her father was powerful. Her childhood was complicated. New Orleans held ghosts she did not like visiting. No one knew that some ghosts wore tailored suits and owned buildings through shell companies. That evening, Mara walked home beneath a violet sky. Baton Rouge moved around her in its usual soft rhythm. Students spilled out of bars near campus. A delivery bike rattled over cracked pavement. The bakery downstairs had already closed, but the air still smelled faintly of sugar and yeast. She climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, and stopped. There was a white envelope on the floor. No stamp, no address. Her name written in black ink. Mara did not touch it at first. She stood over it with her keys still in her hand, listening to the old building breathe. Nothing moved. No shadow shifted under the bathroom door. No floorboard creaked beyond the ordinary complaints of wood and age. She picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a single card. Dinner. Friday, 7. The river looks different at night. No signature. It did not need one. Mara read the card twice, then set it on the table as if it were hot. Her phone rang a minute later. Unknown number. She answered because not answering would have made it worse. "You said you wouldn't call," she said. Cole's voice came through low and calm. "I said I wouldn't call tomorrow. It has been 4 days. That is the kind of technicality only dangerous men enjoy. I was hoping you would notice the restraint. You had someone enter my apartment." "No." Mara looked at the card. Then the envelope walked in by itself. "It was placed under your door." "I am improving." She closed her eyes. "You hear yourself right?" "Yes. And I understand that my standards are not the same as yours." That almost disarmed her. Almost. "You cannot keep doing this." "I know." The answer came too quickly, too quietly. Mara leaned against the counter. "Do you? I know the difference between wanting something and deserving access to it." The silence that followed was not empty. It held too much. Mara looked at the dying rosemary plant on the windowsill. The tips had browned despite her latest attempt to save it. "Why me?" she asked before she could stop herself. Cole did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer. Because you looked at me like you were afraid but not impressed. That is your reason. It was the beginning of one. And now? Now I want to know what you see when no one is telling you where to look. Mara swallowed. The apartment felt too small for the conversation. I'm not going to dinner with you because you slipped a card under my door. I know. Then why send it? So you could decide while angry. Choices made in calm are easy to romanticize. She almost smiled, which made her angrier. You are very committed to making manipulation sound philosophical. I have a degree in philosophy. It helps. The smile escaped before she could stop it. She pressed her fingers to her mouth, annoyed with herself. Cole heard the change in her breathing. Of course he did. There she is, he said. Do not do that. What sound like you found me? His voice lost some of its warmth. Mara. No. You don't get to make me feel discovered when you are the one breaking into the map. He was quiet. For once, she did not rush to fill it. Then he said Friday at 7. If you are not downstairs, the car leaves. No calls. No pressure. That sounds almost normal. I am practicing. She ended the call before he could say anything that made her want to stay on the line. On Friday, she did not go downstairs at 7. At 7:10, she was still in her apartment barefoot, wearing jeans and an old Tulane sweatshirt she had stolen from Evan years ago. She stood by the window and watched the black sedan idling below. At 7:15, the driver stepped out, checked his watch, then got back in. At 7:20, the car pulled away. No second call came. No punishment. No man at the door. Mara stood in the window long after the sedan disappeared. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt the strange ache of a door she had closed with her own hand. The next morning, she found herself driving to New Orleans. She did not admit that she had dressed carefully. A black slip dress under a tan coat, gold hoops again. Hair loose because she had tried putting it up and hated the way it made her look like she was preparing for battle. She parked near the river and walked without a destination. The Mississippi moved wide and brown beneath the gray sky, carrying branches, foam secrets. The city smelled of rain diesel and chicory coffee. Street musicians played near Jackson Square. Tourists posed with drinks before noon. Everything looked alive in the reckless way New Orleans always did, like beauty had made a bargain with rot, and both sides were honoring it. Mara saw him before he saw her. Cole stood near the rail at the edge of the moonwalk alone except for Marcus Reed a few yards back. Marcus was tall, broad, and still as a locked door. Cole wore dark slacks and a black overcoat, his hands in his pockets, his eyes on the water. He did not look surprised when Mara approached. That irritated her. You knew I would come, she said. Cole turned his head. No. You look like you did. I hoped with discipline. Mara looked at the river instead of him. That sounds exhausting. It is. For a while, neither of them spoke. The river moved below them, indifferent and ancient. Finally, Cole said, You refused the car. I did. And came anyway. I did. His mouth curved faintly. That feels like progress. That feels like stubbornness. Sometimes they are cousins. She wanted to dislike him cleanly. It would have been easier if he were all arrogance, all threat, all black suit and command. But he had a way of making space in a conversation, then waiting for her to step into it. She had not expected patience from a man everyone feared. That patience was dangerous. Walk with me, he said. It was not quite a command. She walked. They moved along the riverfront with Marcus behind them at a respectful distance. Cole did not touch her. He matched his pace to hers without making it obvious. When a group of drunk men stumbled too close, Marcus appeared between them and Mara so smoothly she only noticed after the danger had passed. Does he always do that? Mara asked. Breathe hover. Cole glanced back at Marcus. He would call it professional devotion. I would call it surveillance. You call many things surveillance, because many things are. Cole accepted the hit with a slight nod. They stopped near a closed warehouse whose brick walls were stained dark from age and storms. Cole unlocked a side door and held it open. Mara stayed where she was. No. He looked back. No, I am not walking into an empty warehouse with you. It is not empty. That is not better. For a second, something like amusement touched his face. Then he stepped aside, leaving the door open, and moved away from it. Fair. Mara hesitated. The choice was there. Not clean, not simple, but visible. She stepped inside. The warehouse had been transformed without losing its bones. Exposed brick rose 3 stories high. Steel beams crossed above like dark ribs. Tall windows faced the river, though heavy shades blocked most of the light. A few pieces of expensive furniture sat arranged near the center, beautiful and severe. A long table held rolled blueprints, fabric samples, tile pieces, and a book opened face down. You're renovating it, she said. Trying to. For what? Cole removed his coat and placed it over a chair. A private club. Maybe offices. Maybe nothing. Men like you do not buy riverfront warehouses for maybe. No. Men like me buy them because everyone else wants to know why. Mara wandered closer to the table. The book was poetry marked with a black ribbon. She looked up. You really do read this stuff. I told you. I thought it was part of the act. Cole's gaze held hers. Most of what I do is part of an act. Not that. The admission landed quietly. Mara traced one finger over a tile sample cool and gray beneath her skin. Why bring me here? Because you understand space. I design logos. You understand how emptiness speaks. She looked around at the vast room, the blacked-out windows, the furniture arranged as if waiting for people too dangerous to relax. It says you don't trust daylight. Cole's eyes moved over the room. No, he said. It says, I trust exits. There it was again, the world he belonged to pressing itself into every ordinary word. Mara turned to him. Did you bring me here to ask for design advice? I brought you here because I wanted to see what you would change. That sounds like design advice. It is more personal than that. She felt the temperature shift between them. Cole walked to the table and picked up the poetry book. He did not come too close. There is a line in here, he said, about what you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. I know the line. Do you know the answer? Mara folded her arms. I am building a career, paying my bills, keeping my life mine. Is that the answer? Or the defense? Her jaw tightened. You enjoy pushing. I enjoy truth. No, you enjoy control. Cole closed the book with care. Yes. The word was too honest. Mara stared at him. He continued. I enjoy control because chaos has taken enough from me. I enjoy knowing where the threats are. I enjoy entering a room and understanding who will lie, who will run, who will bleed. I enjoy control because without it, men like me die young. The space between them went still. Mara's voice softened despite herself. And women like me? His eyes changed. Women like you learn how to make cages look like choices. That struck too close. She turned away, walking toward the windows. Beyond the shade's edge, the river flashed dull silver. You don't know what I learned. I know you left your father, but you still live as if he might walk into every room and correct you. Mara spun back. You do not get to use my father against me. I am not. You are. I am trying to show you that running is not the same as being free. Her laugh was sharp. That is rich coming from the man who had me followed. Cole's face tightened. I was wrong to do that. She had expected defense. Not that. The answer stole some of her anger. He set the book down. Not wrong because I regret wanting to know if you were safe. Wrong because I treated my fear like permission. Mara looked at him for a long moment. Outside, a boat horn sounded low on the river. Do you apologize often? She asked. No. Are you apologizing now? Yes. The word was plain, unadorned, heavy because it cost him something. Mara walked back to the table and stopped across from him. You scare me, she said. I know. Not just because of what you are. What else? Because you make things sound reasonable that should feel unforgivable. Cole's gaze lowered for a moment. That may be the truest thing anyone has said to me in years. He did not touch her. He did not move closer. Somehow the restraint filled the room more than any advance could have. Mara should have left then. Instead, she stayed for an hour. She told him the space needed warmth if he wanted people to feel chosen instead of trapped. She told him the furniture looked like it had been selected by a man who thought comfort was weakness. She told him the windows should not be hidden all day. Cole listened. Actually listened. He asked about light acoustics texture, the psychology of color. When she spoke about negative space, his attention sharpened, as if she had named a language he already understood. Silence works the same way, he said. In music, in power. Mara looked at him. You always bring it back to power. It is the weather I live in. And love. The question slipped out before she could dress it in irony. Cole grew very still. Love, he said, is usually the thing men claim right before they start making demands. That is bleak. That is experience. For the first time, Mara wondered who had taught him that. She did not ask. When she left the warehouse, Cole walked her to her car. The afternoon had darkened into rain. Drops gathered in his hair and on the shoulders of his shirt. At the driver's door, he said, Have dinner with me tonight. Mara shook her head. You are relentless. Only when uncertain. You are uncertain with you constantly. That answer stayed with her longer than it should have. She did not have dinner with him that night. She did have lunch with him the next day. Then dinner 3 nights later. Then coffee in a courtyard where vines climbed the brick, and Cole sat with his back to the wall watching the door out of habit. Then an evening at a small jazz club where the singer's voice filled the room like smoke, and Cole's hand rested on the table inches from hers. He never grabbed, never crowded, never touched without making the moment slow enough for refusal. That made the touching worse. The first time his fingers brushed hers, she felt it all the way through her wrist. The first time his palm settled at the small of her back while guiding her through a crowded restaurant, she almost stepped away. Almost. In public, people noticed them. They tried not to stare and failed. Men straightened. Women whispered. Waiters became too attentive. Doors opened before Cole reached them. Tables appeared in full restaurants. Bills vanished. Mara hated the way power bent the world around him. She hated more that part of her body relaxed inside that bend. Then the first client called. It was a boutique hotel in New Orleans, far beyond her usual reach. They wanted a full rebrand. The budget was enormous. The timeline generous. The woman on the phone sounded nervous when she said they had heard excellent things about Mara's work. From who Mara asked. A pause. Mutual contacts. By Friday, 2 more inquiries arrived. By Monday, one of her existing clients emailed to say a man had visited their office asking whether Mara was being paid on time. She drove to New Orleans that evening without warning Cole first. Marcus met her at the private elevator of Cole's building and wisely said nothing. Cole was in his office overlooking the city jacket off, sleeves rolled, reading a stack of documents. He looked up when she entered and immediately set the papers down. "Mara, you spoke to my clients." His expression did not change. "My people did. That is not an improvement." "No." She stepped farther into the room. "Do you understand how humiliating it is to have people look at me like I come with a threat attached?" "You do come with a threat attached." Her breath caught. Cole stood. "That was not meant as an insult. It landed as one. I meant that anyone connected to me is watched, judged, tested. I needed to know the people around you were not vulnerable. They are bakery owners, hotel managers, small business people. They are not soldiers in your war." "No," he said. "They are doors." Mara stared at him. He came around the desk but stopped several feet away. "If someone wants to reach you, they look for the softest door. A landlord, a client, a friend, a mechanic, a delivery driver. I check the doors before someone else kicks them open. That is not safety. That is control. The difference is often timing." "No." Her voice rose. "The difference is consent." That stopped him. For several seconds, the only sound was the rain beginning against the windows. Cole looked away first. "You are right." Again, the answer disarmed her. She almost wished he would fight dirty. She knew how to hate that. "I won't have my people contact your clients again without telling you," he said. "Without asking me." His jaw moved once. "Without asking you." Mara studied him, searching for the lie. She did not find one. But that did not make her safe. "I don't know what to do with you," she said, quietly. Cole's expression softened in a way that hurt to look at. "I know. You make me furious." "Yes. And then you listen." "I try." "That is worse." His mouth curved faintly. "I have been told I am difficult. You are a criminal with emotional discipline. That is not difficult. That is a public safety issue." A laugh escaped him, low and real. For 1 second, the room changed. The dangerous man remained, but beneath him was someone almost young, almost reachable. Mara felt herself leaning toward that version and stepped back before he could notice. But he noticed everything. That night she returned to Baton Rouge with her mind unsettled and her pulse too alive. The apartment felt smaller when she stepped inside. Not unsafe exactly, just breakable. She locked the door, set down her bag, and froze. Flowers stood on her kitchen table. White magnolias, dark red roses, green stems arranged in a heavy glass vase she had never seen before. Not outside her door. Inside. A card leaned against the vase. "I apologize for the intrusion. They were cut this morning. I wanted you to have something beautiful when you came home." Mara stood in the doorway with her keys still in her hand. Anger came first. It should have been enough. It should have filled the room, pushed out the scent of magnolia, carried her straight to the phone so she could call him and tear open whatever boundary he thought he had permission to cross. Instead, she walked closer. The roses were almost black at the edges. The magnolias opened wide and pale, fragrant as summer evenings from childhood. The vase was simple, expensive, chosen by someone who had listened when she said beauty needed weight, or it became decoration. Her phone buzzed. Cole. Mara stared at his name this time. Not unknown, not hidden. She answered. "You had someone enter my apartment." "Yes, after promising to ask before touching my life." "I know." The quiet in his voice made the anger ache instead of burn. "Why?" "Because I wanted to give you something and did not trust myself to wait." "That is not an excuse." "No. You keep apologizing after you cross the line." "Yes. And then you do it again." A long silence. Then Cole said, "I am learning where the line is by watching what it costs you when I step over it." Mara closed her eyes. "That is a terrible way to learn." "I know." The flowers filled the room with sweetness. Too much sweetness. Mara opened her eyes and looked around her apartment. The second-hand rug, the crooked bookshelf, the little table where she built ordinary things for ordinary people. The life she had chosen because it belonged only to her. Cole had not destroyed it. That was the frightening part. He had entered it beautifully. "I should hate you," she whispered. His voice came rougher. "Yes. I should tell you never to call me again. Yes. But you don't think I will." "No," he said. "I think you want to. I think that matters." Mara looked at the flowers until her vision blurred. "What do you want from me, Cole?" This time he did not answer quickly. When he spoke, his voice was stripped of all polish. "Everything. Eventually. But not stolen, not forced. Not because I cornered you so carefully you forgot the shape of a door." Her heart beat once hard. "And right now, I want you to keep the flowers if you like them. Throw them out if you need to. And sleep knowing no one will enter your apartment again without your permission." "You expect me to believe that?" "No," he said. "I expect to prove it." Mara ended the call without saying goodbye. She did not throw the flowers away. That night she sat by the window until the city below went quiet. Baton Rouge glowed soft and ordinary beneath the streetlights. Somewhere downstairs the baker arrived before dawn and began preparing bread. The old pipes knocked in the walls. Her laptop slept on the table beside the flowers. Mara pressed her fingers to the glass and watched her reflection look back at her. She had spent 3 years running from men who made choices for her. Cole Mercer was different only because he made her want to choose him back. That was the danger. Not the cars, not the guards, not the name people whispered like weather. The danger was the part of her that stood in the middle of her own carefully built life, breathing in the scent of stolen flowers, and did not feel trapped enough to run. The flowers lasted 8 days. Mara watched them change the way she watched everything connected to Cole Mercer, carefully, suspiciously, with a tenderness she did not want to name. The magnolias browned at the edges first. The roses held longer dark and velvet soft, drinking the water she changed every morning, as if they had been placed in her apartment by someone patient enough to wait. Cole kept his promise. No one entered her apartment again. No men appeared in the hallway. No cars waited beneath the bakery awning. No client called with a trembling voice to mention visits from well-dressed strangers. For one quiet week, Mara almost convinced herself that a line had been drawn and respected. Then Evan knocked on her door at 11 on a Tuesday night. Mara knew before she opened it that something was wrong. Her brother never knocked like that, 3 quick hits, a pause, then one more. It was the rhythm they had used as children when sneaking into each other's rooms after Warren Vale hosted dinners that ended with men leaving through side doors. She opened the door and found Evan standing in the hall with rain in his hair and exhaustion under his eyes. "You need to pack a bag," he said. Mara stared at him. "Hello to you too." "Mara." The way he said her name took the air out of the joke. She stepped aside and let him in. Evan moved through her apartment without sitting down. He checked the window, then the lock, then the view of the street below. He looked thinner than he had at Lydia's wedding, or maybe just more worn down. The dark blue suit he wore was wrinkled at the cuffs. There was a small cut on his lower lip. "What happened?" Mara asked. He looked at the flowers on her table, now wilting in the vase. His mouth tightened. "The Knox crew hit one of Cole's storage buildings tonight." Mara's stomach dropped. She knew the name. Everyone who grew up around her father's business knew the name. The Knox crew had started as a family operation out of Mobile, then spread west with a kind of reckless ambition that old men found vulgar and young men found exciting. They were loud, where Cole was quiet. Cruel, where Cole was precise. They moved narcotics weapons, stolen cars, anything that turned desperation into cash. "Was anyone hurt?" she asked. "One of Cole's men is dead. 2 are missing." Mara gripped the back of a chair. Evan watched her face too closely. "You care. That is not the point. It is exactly the point." She let go of the chair and walked to the sink, not because she needed water, but because movement gave her something to do with her fear. "Why are you here?" "Because Cole is too proud to tell you before he has a plan, and Dad is too political to protect you without using you." Mara turned. "And you?" "I am your brother." For a second, the years between them softened. Then Evan's eyes shifted toward the street. "The Knox crew thinks Cole is distracted. They think you are why." Mara laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "That is insane." "No, it is simple. Men like Cole survive by making themselves impossible to touch. Then a woman appears in public beside him, and suddenly every idiot with a gun thinks he found the one door that might open. I am not a door. I know that. They don't." The apartment felt smaller with every word. Rain started harder against the glass. Downstairs, the bakery's striped awning snapped in the wind. Mara looked at the life around her. The cheap bookshelf, the dying plant, the table where she had worked herself into a person who belonged to no one. "What does Cole want?" she asked. Evan's expression changed. "That is why I came before his people did." A cold certainty moved through her. "No, Mara, no, Evan. He is going to ask you to stay at his penthouse until this settles." Ask Evan said nothing. The answer was enough. Mara walked past him and grabbed her phone from the table. Cole answered on the first ring. "You know," he said. That calm voice nearly broke her temper. "I know you sent my brother as a warning flare before you sent men to collect me. I sent no one to collect you. Yet." A pause. Then Cole said I was going to call. When after my suitcase was already packed, "Mara, no, do not say my name like it solves things. Is Evan right?" Silence breathed between them. "Yes," Cole said. The honesty did not soothe her. It only made the cage visible. "I am not moving into your penthouse. You are not safe where you are. I was safe before you looked at me." "No," he said, and for the first time she heard anger under the control. "You were unnoticed. That is not the same thing." Mara pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "You do not get to rearrange my life because men in your world started shooting at each other. My world is touching yours because you are standing too close to me. Then step back." The words came out before she could think better of them. Cole went very quiet. Behind her, Evan looked away. When Cole spoke again, his voice was lower. "Is that what you want?" Mara closed her eyes. The answer should have been yes. It should have risen clean and strong. Instead, she saw him in the warehouse with rain in his hair, apologizing like the words had weight. She saw him at the Blue Heron listening when she spoke about empty space. She saw the flowers on her table, beautiful and unforgivable. "I want my choice to matter," she said. "It does. Then ask me." A long silence followed. Finally, Cole said, "Come to New Orleans tonight. Stay in my penthouse until I know the Knox crew cannot reach you through my name." That still sounds like an order. It is the closest thing to asking that I can manage while imagining your body in a place I cannot defend. The rawness in his voice caught her by surprise. Mara looked at Evan, then at the rain shining on the window. "I will pack 1 bag," she said. 1. "I am not moving." Cole exhaled softly. 1 bag, and no one touches my apartment. No one touches your apartment. And when I want to leave, I leave. Another silence. Yes, he said. Mara heard the cost of that word. She ended the call. Evan stayed while she packed. She moved like someone preparing for a business trip, folding clothes with too much precision. Choosing her laptop chargers, sketchbook 1, black dress, 1 pair of heels. She told herself she would not need. She almost left the old Tulane sweatshirt, then shoved it into the bag at the last second. At the door, she turned back. The flowers remained on the table. Evan noticed. You want to take them? No. She locked the door behind her before she changed her mind. The drive to New Orleans was silent. Evan drove with both hands on the wheel, his eyes always moving. Mara watched the rain smear the highway lights into gold and red ribbons. The city appeared out of the dark like a memory she had failed to bury. Cole's penthouse sat above the warehouse district, high enough to make the Mississippi look almost peaceful. The building had no visible sign, no dramatic entrance, nothing to announce power. That made it feel more powerful. The lobby was marble glass, and men who did not pretend to be anything other than security. Marcus Reed met them at the elevator. His eyes moved over Mara once, not rudely, just thoroughly. Miss Vale, does everyone in your life speak like they are already at a funeral? Mara asked. Marcus blinked. Evan coughed into his hand. Then Marcus smiled barely. Only when Mr. Mercer is in a mood. The private elevator climbed without sound. When the doors opened, Cole was waiting. He had changed out of whatever he had worn that day. Dark pants, white shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearms. No jacket, no blood, no visible weapon. Still, the room seemed to organize itself around him. His eyes found Mara first, then her bag. Only then did he look at Evan. Thank you. Evan's jaw tightened. I did it for her. I know. The two men held each other's stare, old family tension meeting newer, sharper danger. Mara stepped between them with her bag still in hand. I am tired, she said. Cole's attention returned to her immediate and complete. Your room is ready. My room. His expression did not shift. Next to mine. It has its own lock. The lock works from the inside. Marcus checked it. That answer drained some of her anger and left confusion behind. He led her down a hall lined with quiet art and soft light. The room was larger than her entire apartment. Pale walls, dark wood, a bed dressed in white, a bathroom of stone and glass. The windows looked over New Orleans glittering wet beneath the storm. Mara set her bag on the bed. Cole remained by the door. I will not come in unless you ask. She looked back at him. You keep doing that. What? Being better than I am prepared for. His face tightened, not with pride, but pain. I am not better, Mara. I am trying not to be worse. The honesty sat between them. For a moment, neither moved. Then somewhere far below, a siren cut through the rain. Cole's eyes shifted toward the sound, and the man in the doorway vanished behind the boss. I have to go downstairs, he said. Marcus is here. Evan is staying tonight unless you ask him to leave. The kitchen is stocked. The elevator requires a code. Do not open the door for anyone. You make hospitality sound like a hostage briefing. His mouth softened. I am aware. Cole. He stopped. Was someone really killed tonight? Yes. Someone close. All my men are close enough to bleed for me. It was not an answer, but it was a truth. Mara nodded. Cole left her standing in the room with the city beneath her and the storm around the glass. The first night she did not sleep. She lay in the huge bed and listened to unfamiliar sounds. The soft breath of the air system. Rain. Distant elevator movement. Men speaking low somewhere beyond the walls. Twice she heard Cole's voice, controlled and quiet, then silence after it, the kind that followed orders no one wanted repeated. At dawn, she found the kitchen. It was beautiful and useless. White stone counters, hidden cabinets, expensive appliances that looked untouched. She opened 4 drawers before finding a spoon. Cole entered while she was staring into a cabinet full of identical black mugs. "You look offended," he said. "I am. Your kitchen was designed by someone who has never made soup while angry." He leaned against the doorway. "Is that a common activity?" "In real homes, yes." His hair was damp from a shower. There was a bruise forming along his jaw that had not been there last night. Mara noticed. He noticed her noticing. "It is nothing he said. That sentence has never meant nothing." Marcus opened a door too quickly. "You expect me to believe your own man hit you with a door? No." Despite herself, Mara almost smiled. Cole moved to the coffee machine, then paused. "May I? This is your kitchen. You are standing in front of the mugs." The small courtesy should not have affected her. It did. She stepped aside. They drank coffee at the counter while the city brightened under gray clouds. For several minutes they did not speak. It felt almost normal until Marcus appeared at the far end of the living room and said, "We have movement." Cole's face changed. He set down his cup. Mara watched the warmth leave him. "We're Knox men near Algiers. 2 cars. Maybe a test." Cole nodded. "Tell Bennett no engagement unless they cross the line. I want names plates and who they call after they leave." Marcus disappeared. Mara wrapped both hands around her mug. "Do you ever get tired of talking like that?" Cole looked at her. "Like what?" "Like everyone is a piece of weather you are tracking." "Yes." That surprised her. He picked up his cup again. "But tired does not change the forecast." Days settled into a strange rhythm. Mara worked from the office Cole had arranged for her without asking, though she had to admit the light was perfect. Her laptop sat on a wide desk facing the river. Her sketchbooks had been placed beside fresh pencils, the exact brand she used. No one mentioned how they knew. Cole came and went. Sometimes he was gone for hours. Sometimes he was in the next room, his voice low behind closed doors. Men arrived with folders, maps, photographs. Marcus became a steady presence, silent but not unkind. Evan stayed the first 2 nights, then left after Mara promised she would call if she needed him. On the 3rd evening, Cole found her on the glass-enclosed terrace, curled in a chair with her knees beneath her. The rain had stopped, but wind moved over the city in restless waves. He sat across from her, leaving space between them. For a while, they watched lights blink along the river. "Tell me about your childhood," he said. Mara gave him a tired look. "That is not small talk. I am bad at small talk." "I noticed." He waited. She should have deflected. Instead, the city below felt far away, and the glass around them made the terrace seem suspended outside time. "I wanted to be a painter," she said. Cole did not move. "I painted everything. Walls, notebooks. My shoes once. My mother used to say I saw colors before I saw people. Your mother is gone. Cancer. I was 15. I'm sorry." Mara nodded. The old grief moved quietly. "After she died, the house became colder. My father never yelled. He just removed warmth from rooms until you behaved correctly." Cole's expression darkened. "He told me painting was not practical. So I studied design. It was my compromise. Beauty with a business plan. And now I design websites for people who do not know who I am." She looked at the city. It felt like freedom for a while. For a while, Mara turned back to him. "Now, I am in your penthouse because men I never met might decide I am useful to hurt you." Cole's jaw tightened. "This is not control." She laughed softly. "You keep saying that as if repetition makes it true. If you want to leave, I will arrange it." "Arrange it," she repeated. "Even my escape would come with your logistics. His eyes flashed. Because sending you into a city at war with nothing but pride would be cruelty, and keeping me here necessary. There it is. Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I will not apologize for wanting you alive. I am not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Mara looked at him across the careful distance he kept putting between them. I am asking whether you know the difference between protecting me and owning the shape of my life. The question struck him. She saw it. For once, he had no immediate answer. At last, he said, I know the difference. I do not always know how to live inside it. That was the most frightening thing about Cole. Not that he lied, that he told truths other men would have hidden. Mara's voice lowered. I think I love you. The words left her quietly, almost gently, but the effect was violent. Cole stood so fast the chair shifted behind him. Mara's heart lurched. He walked to the glass and stood with his back to her, one hand braced against the window frame. Do not say that because you are scared. I am scared. His shoulders went still. But not of you, she continued. I am scared because I know what it means. I know loving you makes every simple thing complicated. I know it makes me visible. I know it makes leaving harder. Cole turned. The look on his face was stripped bare. You should leave. Mara stood too. That is not what I said. It is what I heard. Then listen better. His laugh came out broken. Mara! She crossed the space between them. Slowly, giving him the same chance to step back that he always gave her. He did not. I love you, she said, and this time her voice did not shake. I do not know when it happened. Maybe in pieces. Maybe every time you tried to be honest when a lie would have been easier. Maybe because you make me furious and then make room for my fury. Maybe because when you look at me I feel like the parts of myself I hid are standing in the light. Cole closed his eyes. I am not good, he said. I know. I am not safe. I know. I am capable of things you should never have to understand. I know enough. No. His eyes opened. You do not. And I want to keep it that way, which may be the first decent instinct I have ever had. Mara reached for him. He caught her wrist before her hand touched his chest, not hard, but desperate. If I touch you right now, I will forget every reason to go slow. Then don't. His breathing changed. For one burning second, she thought he would kiss her anyway. Instead, Cole lifted her wrist and pressed his mouth to the inside of it, soft as a vow, then let her go. Not tonight, he said. The restraint hurt worse than surrender. Why? Because I am afraid, he said, and I refuse to turn fear into possession while your heart is in my hands. Mara had no answer for that, so she left him on the terrace and went to her room where she spent the night wide awake, aching with anger, desire, and something dangerously close to trust. The next afternoon, the war became impossible to keep outside the glass. Mara was working on a hotel logo when the first alert appeared on her phone. Shooting reported near a construction site in the 9th Ward. 2 dead, 3 wounded. Police investigating. Her fingers went cold. She called Cole. He answered immediately. I am alive. The relief was so sharp it made her furious. That was not my only question. I know. Did you do it? A pause. In the background, she heard voices. Engines, someone shouting a name. Cole said I ended a conversation that had become expensive. Mara stood from the desk. People are dead. Yes. His voice held no pride. No apology either. The man she loved, if that was what this was, now stood somewhere in the city with blood moving around his decisions. Come home, she said. I will. When, as soon as it is safe. For who? Another pause. For everyone still breathing. The call ended. He did not come home that night. Mara waited in the penthouse with Marcus near the elevator and rain returning against the windows. She tried to work. She tried to read. She tried to sleep. At some point near dawn, she found herself in Cole's office, standing before a wall of framed maps marked with routes, properties, names, borders. New Orleans reduced to lines of control. She saw her own life in that room, a place on a map, a door, a weakness. Cole returned the next evening. The private elevator opened and he stepped out in the same clothes he had worn the day before. His white shirt was stained near the cuff. His knuckles were split. There was blood dried along his jaw, not much, but enough. Mara moved before thinking. Cole lifted one hand. "Don't." She stopped as if struck. His voice was hoarse. "Let me get clean first." "I don't care." "I do." The words were rougher than anger. "I care what touches you. I care that I have been places today I do not want on your skin." He walked past her into his bedroom and shut the door. The shower ran for 30 minutes. Mara sat on the sofa, hands clasped so tightly her fingers hurt. When Cole returned, he wore dark sweatpants and a gray shirt. His hair was wet. The bruise on his jaw had deepened. He looked less like a king now and more like a man held together by will. "It is done," he said. Mara looked up. The Knox crew agreed to terms. Temporary peace. 5 months, maybe less if they get stupid. How many? He knew what she meant. His gaze dropped. "Enough." Mara stood. "I need more than that." "No, you don't." "Yes, I do." Cole's eyes lifted to hers, and in them she saw exhaustion so complete it almost looked like grief. "If I give you numbers, you will turn them into faces. If I give you details, you will carry them. I will not make you witness after the fact just because you think truth requires description." That sounds like protection again. It is. And control. Yes. The admission broke something open between them. Cole walked closer, stopping an arm's length away. "I am trying to love you with hands that were trained for violence," he said. "I do not know how to make that clean." Mara looked at his bruised knuckles, then at his face. "Stop trying to make it clean." His breath caught. "I am not asking for a harmless man," she said. "I am asking for the real one. You should want better." "Probably. That is not funny." "I know." He looked away, jaw tight, fighting something she could not see. "You should run from this, Mara." She stepped closer. "Stop telling me what I should do." He looked back at her. "You want me here," she said. "Yes. I want to be here. That is not enough. It is tonight." Cole's control faltered. Mara reached up slowly and touched the clean line of his jaw just beneath the bruise. He closed his eyes as if the contact hurt. Then he kissed her. Not gently, not carefully, not like the restrained man on the terrace. He kissed her like the city had burned down, and this was the only proof he had survived it. Mara held on to him, meeting the force of it with her own feeling the tremor in his hands when they came to her waist, and stopped there asking even now. She answered by stepping closer. The kiss slowed, deepened, became less hunger than surrender. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you," Cole said, voice low and wrecked. "That is the only thing in my life I do not know how to command." Mara's hands stayed on his chest, feeling his heart beat hard beneath her palms. "Then don't command it." His eyes opened. "Stay," he said. It was not an order. For once it was only a plea. Mara looked past him toward the windows where New Orleans glittered below them in rain and danger and impossible light. "I am not leaving tonight," she said. Cole closed his eyes again, and the relief on his face was almost unbearable. Mara stayed that night because Cole asked, as if the words had been dragged out of him. By morning, the penthouse had changed. Not in any way a stranger would notice. The same glass walls looked over the same bruised city. The same quiet men moved near elevators and doors. The same river dragged its secrets through New Orleans under a silver sky. But Mara felt the shift in small places. Cole's coffee cup sat beside hers on the terrace table. Her sketchbook lay open in his office untouched, but no longer out of place. His hand brushed her lower back when he passed behind her in the kitchen, and this time she did not step away. For 3 weeks they lived inside something that almost resembled peace. Almost. Cole came home for dinner most nights. Sometimes he cooked, though his cooking was less cooking than controlled assembly. Steak salad coffee strong enough to lift the dead. Mara taught him how to chop onions without looking like he was interrogating them. He watched her rearrange his kitchen with the grim patience of a man allowing an invasion. "You own half the river and still don't know where to keep a wooden spoon," she said one evening, standing barefoot on the cool tile. Cole leaned against the counter, sleeves rolled, watching her move jars from one cabinet to another. "I had people for that. That is the saddest thing you have ever said. I have said darker things. Yes, but that one had real loneliness in it." His expression shifted just slightly. Mara looked away first. She learned his rhythms. The hour when his phone began to ring. The silence that followed bad news. The way Marcus appeared without sound when something required immediate attention. The way Cole's face went calm before violence entered the room, even if only through a message on a screen. She learned not to ask every question. She also learned that not asking did not mean not knowing. One night, Cole came home after midnight with rain in his hair and a faint blood stain at his cuff. He saw her notice. He took off the shirt before coming near her, washed his hands twice, then stood in the bedroom doorway as if waiting to be invited back into the life they were building. Mara opened the blankets. He came to her without a word. That was their peace. Fragile, unusual, built from restraint, desire, silence, and the things neither of them could change. The first crack came on a Thursday morning. Mara was in the home office revising a hotel logo when the penthouse went too quiet. She noticed it before anyone told her. The low voices stopped. Footsteps moved faster. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed with controlled force. Then Cole appeared. He wore a black suit and no expression. Mara stood. What happened? For a second, he looked like he might choose the easier lie. He did not. Daniel Price is dead. She knew the name. Daniel had been at the penthouse twice, a broad man with silver hair and kind eyes who called Mara ma'am even after she told him not to. He had run one of Cole's river operations. Cole trusted him. How Mara asked. Cole walked to the window and looked out over the city. Shot in a garage near the river. The room tilted. Knocks. Yes. His voice was too flat. Mara stepped closer. There is more. Cole's hand flexed once at his side. They knew where he would be. What time? Which guard had called in sick? Someone gave them his rote. A traitor. Cole's reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. Someone close enough to be useful. Mara wanted to touch him. She did not know if touch would comfort him or make him break. What do you need from me? She asked. The question made him turn. For a moment, something moved across his face. Surprise? Pain? Something like gratitude. Then the boss returned. I need you to stay here. Mara nodded slowly. That is not what I asked. It is my answer. Cole. His eyes sharpened. Not today. The words were not cruel, but they were a door closing. Mara watched him leave with Marcus and 3 other men. By evening, the news called it a targeted killing. By midnight, 2 Knox-owned businesses were burning on the other side of the city. Cole returned at dawn and did not sleep. For the next week, peace became performance. Mara worked while men carried maps into the conference room. She drank coffee while Marcus checked stairwells and elevator codes. She took calls with clients who did not know that outside the frame of her video meeting, armed men were discussing who had betrayed whom and how many bodies would answer for it. Cole grew quieter, not distant exactly, more contained, as if every feeling had been folded and locked away because he could not afford loose edges. Mara hated it. She hated that she missed the man who had let her move the spoons. Then, on a Monday afternoon, the windows shook. The sound arrived after the tremor, a deep, violent boom that rolled through the penthouse and punched the breath from Mara's lungs. Car alarms began screaming below. Somewhere in the building, an alarm chirped once, then shut off. Her phone rang. "Cole," she answered with shaking hands. "Get away from the glass," he said. "What happened, Mara? Move." She backed away from the windows. "What happened? One of my facilities near Chupitulas. They used a truck." His voice was controlled, but there was shouting behind him. Engines. Someone yelling for a medic. Her throat closed. "Are you hurt now?" "Cole." "No," he said again, harder. "Listen to me. Go to the panic room." She looked toward the hallway. "I am not going into a panic room without knowing what is happening." "You know enough." "No, I don't." His voice dropped. "They are escalating because they think you are here. They think if they make enough noise, I will move wrong." The fear she had been holding became cold. "Code is your birthday," he said. "Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone except me, Marcus, or Evan. I hate this. I know. I hate that loving you means learning where the panic room is." For the first time, his voice broke at the edge. "So do I. Go." The line went dead. Mara stood still for 1 second longer, just long enough to understand that pride could get her killed. Then she ran. The panic room was hidden behind a large, abstract painting in the bedroom. Cole had shown it to her once in the same tone another man might use to explain a thermostat. Inside were shelves of water, medical supplies, cash, weapons locked behind steel passports, radios, and monitors showing camera feeds from the building. Mara locked herself inside. The room sealed with a soft, mechanical sound. Silence fell. Not ordinary silence. Engineered silence. The kind built by men who expected screams outside and wanted the people inside to survive them. She sat on the narrow bench and watched the monitors. Empty hallway, private elevator, service corridor, garage entrance. Men moved in and out of frames with practiced urgency. Minutes stretched. Then hours. Her phone lost signal inside the room just as Cole had warned. A hardline phone sat on the wall. It did not ring. Mara tried to breathe slowly. She tried not to imagine Cole bleeding somewhere under broken concrete. She tried not to imagine Knox men looking at photos of her saying her name like strategy. After the 3rd hour, she stopped crying. After the 4th, she became angry. After the 6th, the lock clicked. Mara stood and grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a metal flashlight. The door opened. Evan stood outside. His shirt was streaked with blood. Mara's heart dropped so fast she almost fell. "He's alive," Evan said immediately. She pressed a hand to the wall. "Where safe house?" "He sent me." "Why didn't he come?" Evan looked away. That was worse than any answer. "Move," he said. "We have to go." The drive through New Orleans felt unreal. The city looked normal in pieces. A woman walking a dog. A man unloading crates behind a restaurant. Tourists laughing under balconies. But every few blocks, Mara saw the other city. Police lights, burn marks near a warehouse, men posted at corners who turned their heads as Evan's car passed. The safe house sat in Marigny, a narrow brownstone with blue shutters and iron railings. It looked charming. That made Mara trust it less. Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and gun oil. Cole was in the back room. He stood when he saw her, then winced before hiding it. There was a bandage wrapped around his upper arm. One eye had begun to swell. His knuckles were split again, and a dark bruise crossed his ribs beneath the shirt he had not buttoned properly. Mara crossed the room. This time, when he lifted a hand as if to stop her, she ignored it. She wrapped her arms around him. Cole went still. Then he folded around her so tightly she could feel his whole body shaking. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "For what?" "For every door that locked behind you because of me." Mara pulled back enough to look at him. "You did not put the bomb there." "No. I built the life that made you part of the target." There it was. The truth he had been circling since the wedding. Mara touched the edge of the bandage on his arm. Who was it, Knox? With help. The traitor. His jaw tightened. "Maybe. Do you know, I have suspicions. What happens to suspects in your world?" Cole looked at her for a long moment. "You know the answer." She did. That was the problem. Later that night, after Evan left to speak with Marcus and the safe house settled into guarded quiet, Cole sat on the edge of the bed in the room they had been given. He looked exhausted in a way Mara had never seen. Not physically, though he was injured. Spiritually, as if something inside him had been holding up a ceiling for too long. "I can get you out," he said. Mara looked up from the chair where she had been cleaning dried blood from her hands. Some of it was his. Some of it might have been Evan's. "What I can send you away. Clean documents, money. A place where no one knows you. West Coast, maybe. Or Vermont. Somewhere quiet." She stared at him. Cole continued because stopping would have required courage he did not have yet. "You can design, paint, be whatever you were before me. Before you." His face tightened. "Mara." "No, say it plainly." He stood, then stopped as pain caught in his ribs. "I need you to leave." The words landed softly. That made them crueler. Mara rose from the chair. "You need me to leave?" "Yes." "Because you don't love me." His expression broke. "Because I do." She laughed once, stunned by the old shape of it. Men making decisions for her and calling it care. "I am not your damage to manage. You are my wife in every way that matters." "I am not your wife." "Then let me save you before you become one." Mara stepped toward him. "No." Cole closed his eyes. "Mara." "No. I left my father because he thought love meant arranging my life into something useful. I will not stand here and let you do the same thing with better cheekbones and worse enemies." Despite everything, a flicker of humor crossed his face and vanished. "This is not a joke." "I know. That is why you need to hear me." She moved closer. "You are not sending me away because I am weak. You are sending me away because you are terrified that loving me makes you weak." His silence confirmed it. Mara's voice softened but did not bend. "You think I am the door they will use? Fine. Then stop leaving me unlocked." Cole opened his eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means I train." "No." "Yes. No. You do not get a vote that cancels mine." His face hardened. "You want to learn how to shoot at men? Now I want to learn how not to freeze when the room locks. I want to know exits, codes, names, routes. I want to understand the world I am apparently already risking my life inside." This is not a self-defense class at a suburban gym. I know that. No, you don't. Then teach me. Cole looked at her as if she had asked him to hand her a loaded soul. I have spent my life keeping violence away from what I love. And how is that working? The words hit. He turned away. Mara let the silence stretch until he faced her again. I am not asking to become you, she said. I am asking not to remain the fragile thing everyone points at when they want to hurt you. Cole's voice was rough. You are not fragile. Then stop treating me like glass. Training began 3 days later. Cole did not approve, not really, but he agreed, which for him was almost the same as bleeding. Marcus became her instructor. He was patient in the brutal way of men who did not confuse gentleness with kindness. The gym beneath one of Cole's buildings had gray mats, mirrored walls, and no windows. The first thing Marcus taught Mara was how to fall. She hated it. Again, he said. She got up. Again. Her shoulder ached. Her palms burned. Her pride suffered worse than both. You are thinking too much, Marcus said. I am a designer. Thinking is the point, not when someone grabs you. He grabbed her wrist. She twisted wrong. He put her on the mat so fast the air left her lungs. From the wall, Cole moved forward. Mara lifted one hand without looking at him. Don't. He stopped. Marcus waited. Mara coughed, rolled to her side, and pushed herself up. Again she said. Cole left before the session ended. That night he was waiting in the kitchen when she returned bruised, sweaty, furious, and starving. There is ice, he said. I know where ice lives. And food. I also know where food lives. He looked at the purple mark forming near her elbow. I hate this. Mara opened the freezer. Good. His eyebrows drew together. Good. If this were easy for you, it would mean you liked the idea of me becoming someone who needs this. Cole said nothing. She pressed ice to her elbow and looked at him across the kitchen. I don't like it either. That helped. Not enough, but some. The weeks that followed changed her body first, then her mind. Mara learned how to break a grip, how to strike and run, how to identify a weapon by the way clothing hung wrong. She learned the exits of restaurants before reading menus. She learned to sit where she could see reflective surfaces. She learned the difference between a nervous driver and a trained one. She learned how to shoot. The first time she fired a gun, she hated the violence of the sound so much she set the weapon down and walked into the bathroom where she gripped the sink and tried not to vomit. Cole found her there but stayed outside the door. I can stop this, he said. Mara looked at herself in the mirror. Pale, angry, alive. No. He did not argue. When she opened the door, he handed her a bottle of water. No speech, no comfort she had not asked for. Just water. She took it. Something changed between them after that. Cole still feared for her, but fear no longer had the same shape. It did not always become command. Sometimes it became information. Sometimes it became standing 3 feet away while she learned to save herself. Then the Knox crew made their smartest move. A 16-year-old girl named Lily Knox went missing on a Tuesday afternoon. She was the daughter of a minor Knox lieutenant young enough for the news to show school photos connected enough for every criminal in the city to understand the accusation beneath the grief. By dawn, she was found drugged and terrified in one of Cole's empty warehouses. The city exploded. Reporters shouted his name outside police headquarters. Officials who owed him favors suddenly found cameras useful. The Knox family accused him publicly. The police moved with unusual speed. Cole turned himself in before they could drag him out. Mara found out from Evan, who arrived at the penthouse with his face ashen. They have him downtown. Mara was already reaching for her coat. Evan blocked the door. Mara, listen to me. This is not like the other times. Move. They want you involved. That is part of it. I said move. The lieutenant who set this up has made it clear. Using you is the point. If you walk into this, you are no longer protected by distance or rumor. You become public. Mara met her brother's eyes. I became public when Cole looked at me and the jazz stopped. Evan did not move. So Mara stepped closer. I am done being protected by absence. The police station smelled of burnt coffee damp coats and fluorescent exhaustion. Cole's lawyer was already there, a sharp woman named Renee Bell, who looked like she could cut glass with a glance. She took one look at Mara and said, "He is going to hate that you came." "Good," Mara said. "He can be alive and angry." They let her see him after an hour. Cole sat in an interrogation room with his hands visible on the table. There were red marks on his wrists from cuffs. His jaw was tight enough to crack stone. When Mara entered, his face changed. "No," he said. She sat across from him. "Yes, you should not be here. I renovated that warehouse." His anger paused. "What?" "The one where they found Lily. I was there for 2 weeks with contractors, painters, electricians, delivery crews. We have invoices, photos, time-stamped access logs, and at least 8 people who can confirm the space was being worked on during the dates they claim she was held there." Cole stared at her. "Mara. No. Stop trying to protect me from being connected to you. I am connected to you. They know it. I know it. The only person still pretending distance is possible is you." His eyes softened, then hardened again, because the room had glass and witnesses. "You testify you tie your name to mine. My name was never light, Cole. I just got tired of carrying it for men who did not love me." The words silenced him. Renee used the evidence like a blade. By the 3rd day, the accusation collapsed. Workers confirmed Mara's timeline. Security footage placed Knox men near the warehouse after hours. Lily, once medically stable, identified a man tied to her own family as one of the people who moved her. Cole was released before sunset. He did not speak on the way to the safe house. Neither did Mara. Inside, once the doors were locked and the guards posted, Cole sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since she had known him, he shook. Not from pain. From the terrible effort of remaining whole. Mara knelt in front of him. He looked at her as if she had become both salvation and ruin. "My love for you is a liability I cannot afford," he said. His voice was barely there. Mara took his hands, careful of the bruises. "Yes." He flinched. "And your love for me is not clean either," she continued. "It makes you afraid. It makes you controlling. It makes men stupid enough to think they can break you through me." Cole's eyes closed. "But I am still here." He opened them. Mara held his gaze. "We do not survive this by pretending love is not a weakness. We survive by building around it until it becomes something harder to break." Cole's hands tightened around hers. "What if I fail?" "You will." A bitter breath left him. "So will I," she said. "Then we choose again." He leaned forward until his forehead touched hers. For once, the room did not feel like a cage. It felt like a foundation. The next morning, Mara woke before Cole. For a few seconds, she did not remember where she was. The safe house ceiling was unfamiliar, low, and plain, with a small water stain near the corner. Pale light slipped through the curtains. Somewhere beyond the room, a floorboard creaked under the weight of a guard changing position. Then she felt Cole's hand wrapped around hers. He had fallen asleep sitting against the headboard, still dressed in the shirt he had worn home from the police station. His head rested back against the wall, dark lashes low against bruised skin, his face finally unguarded in exhaustion. Mara stayed still. She had seen him powerful. She had seen him bloody. She had seen him furious, restrained, tender, afraid. But this version of him felt the most dangerous to love. because he looked human enough to lose. His hand tightened around hers before his eyes opened. "You were watching me," he said, voice rough with sleep. "You looked peaceful." That must have been unsettling. It was. His mouth moved like it wanted to smile but had forgotten how. For a while they sat in quiet. The city was waking around them. Cars passed outside. A dog barked. Somewhere in the house, Marcus spoke to someone in a low voice. Normal sounds placed around abnormal lives. Cole looked at their joined hands. "I should have told you about the warehouse logs," he said. "You didn't know I had them." "I should have known." Mara turned toward him. "You cannot know everything." His eyes lifted to hers. The idea offended him. She almost laughed, but the laugh caught in her throat. "I mean it," she said. "That is part of the problem. You keep trying to make control do the work of trust." Cole looked away. "I trusted Daniel." "I know. He died." "Yes. And you almost became the price of that mistake." Mara moved closer, careful of his ribs. "I am not asking you to stop being careful. I am asking you to let me stand where I already am." He looked at her, then really looked. Not as the girl in the copper dress, not as Warren Vale's runaway daughter, not as the woman enemies might use to break him, as someone who had walked into a police station with evidence in her hands and fear in her throat and had not turned around. Cole lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. "All right," he said. It was not dramatic. It did not need to be. By afternoon, they were back at the penthouse. Mara expected relief when the private elevator opened. Instead, she felt the building watching her. The glass walls, the polished floors, the wide rooms that had once felt like luxury and captivity at the same time. Men stood straighter when she entered. A few looked at Cole first, then at her. This time, Cole did not move ahead of her. He walked beside her. That small difference changed the room. 2 days later, he called a meeting. Mara was in the office reviewing proofs for a restaurant brand when Marcus came to the doorway. "Mr. Mercer is ready." Mara looked up. For what, Marcus's expression stayed neutral, but there was something almost amused in his eyes. "For you." The conference room was full. Cole sat at the head of the long black table. Marcus stood near the wall. Evan was there too, arms folded, jaw tight, looking like he wanted to object to everything and had run out of useful words. Around the table sat men Mara recognized from elevators' hallways, guarded conversations. Some had names, some had only faces. Every eye turned when she entered. For one old second, Mara felt the instinct to shrink. Then Cole pushed back the chair to his right. Not across the room. Not behind him. Beside him. Mara walked to it and sat. No one spoke. Cole let the silence breathe until it became obedience. "The Knox operation is finished as an independent force," he said. "Those who accept terms keep limited territory under our oversight. Those who refuse leave Louisiana. Those who stay and lie will be removed." A man with gray hair and a broken nose leaned forward. And the ones involved with the girl Cole's face did not change. "They are being found." The room understood the sentence completely. Mara understood it too, and the knowledge settled in her bones without surprise. That frightened her less than it should have. Maybe because she no longer confused innocence with goodness. Maybe because Lily Knox had been 16 and terrified and used by men who thought children were pieces on a board. Another man looked at Mara, then quickly away. Cole saw it. "Say it," Cole said. The man swallowed. "Some people will think Mrs. Vale being here means she has influence over decisions." Cole turned his gaze on him. "She does." The room went still. Mara's breath caught, but she kept her face calm. Cole continued. "Not because she asks for softness. Because she sees doors I miss. She sees cost where I see strategy. That does not make me weaker. It makes this organization harder to bait." No one moved. Cole leaned back. "The next man who treats my wife as leverage will learn the difference between finding a weakness and creating a reason." Mara looked at him. Wife. The word had entered the room before the ring had entered her life. Cole did not look at her when he said it. That would have softened the statement. He let it stand as fact. After the meeting, he closed his office door behind them. Mara turned on him. Wife Cole removed his cufflinks slowly, buying himself a second. It was the clearest word. "It is not an accurate one. Not legally." She folded her arms. "That is your defense." He looked up. "No." The room quieted. Outside New Orleans glowed under late afternoon sun. The river looked molten beyond the glass. Cole came around the desk, but stopped before he reached her, as he always did when the choice mattered. "I have no talent for asking gently," he said. Mara's heart began to beat harder. "Cole, I do not know how to give you a normal life. I cannot promise harmlessness. I cannot promise there will never be blood near the door or fear in the middle of the night. I cannot become a man untouched by what made me." His voice lowered. "But I can promise truth. I can promise that when I forget the line between protection and control, I will listen when you drag me back to it. I can promise that my world will no longer happen around you, while everyone pretends it is mercy to keep you blind." Mara did not move. Cole reached into his pocket and took out a ring. It was not huge, not theatrical. A single antique diamond set in warm gold, elegant and sharp in its simplicity. "I bought this after the first dinner," he said. Her throat tightened. "That is insane." "Yes, you knew me for one meal. I knew the room had changed." Mara stared at the ring, then at him. Cole's composure cracked at the edges. "Marry me," he said. "Not because it is safe. Not because it makes sense. Marry me because you are already the structure everything else has started leaning toward, and I am tired of pretending I know how to stand without you." Mara's eyes burned. "You make terrible proposals. I know. You sound like a man asking me to help carry a war." "I am." The honesty landed between them. Mara stepped closer. "Then hear my answer clearly. I will marry you, but not as a symbol you lock away or display when convenient. I stand beside you, or I walk." Cole's eyes darkened with something like reverence. "Beside me," he said, "even when it scares you. Especially then." Mara held out her hand. "Yes." Cole slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that were not quite steady. For a moment he only stared at it there. Then he bowed his head over her hand and pressed his mouth to the ring like a man making peace with his own surrender. The wedding happened 10 days later. No ballroom, no orchestra, no 100 relatives pretending history was clean. They married in a small private courthouse room with high windows and old wooden benches. The judge owed Cole enough favors to avoid asking questions. Marcus stood as Cole's witness. Evan stood beside Mara, wearing a dark suit and an expression full of grief, pride, and reluctant acceptance. Mara wore a simple ivory dress she had designed herself. Clean lines, long sleeves, no lace, no veil, nothing borrowed from a family that had tried to spend her. Before the judge began, Evan leaned close. "You sure Mara looked at Cole?" He stood across from her, still as stone, but his eyes gave him away. He looked terrified. "Yes," she whispered. Evan nodded once. "Then I'm here." The ceremony was short. Cole's vows were shorter. "I choose you," he said, voice low. "Every day I understand how. Every day I do not. I choose you still." Mara's voice shook when it was her turn. "I choose you with my eyes open." Cole closed his eyes briefly as if those words hurt more than any blade. Afterward, there was no grand reception. Just dinner in a private room above a French Quarter restaurant where rain tapped softly against the windows and jazz played somewhere below. This time, when the music softened as Cole entered, Mara noticed. So did he. His mouth tightened. Mara took his hand. The band kept playing. That night, back at the penthouse, Mara stood by the bedroom window in her wedding dress and looked out at the river. Cole came up behind her but did not touch until she leaned back. Only then did his hands settle at her waist. "You are Mrs. Mercer now," he said against her hair. "I was Mara first." "Yes," he said. "You were. And I stay Mara." His hands tightened slightly. "I know." She turned in his arms. "Do you?" Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "I am learning." It was the best answer he could have given. 3 days after the wedding, Cole left the city. The last remnants of the Knox crew had scattered east, hiding between favors and old debts. One of them had access to the man who arranged Lily's abduction. Another had knowledge of the betrayal that killed Daniel Price. Cole needed it ended before it grew new teeth. This time, Mara did not beg him to stay. She stood in the penthouse living room while Marcus waited by the elevator. "What do I need to know?" she asked. Cole's eyes moved over her face. "I will be gone 4 days, maybe 7. Marcus stays with you. Evan has the second route out if this building is compromised. Renee has legal documents ready if anyone tries to pull you into another investigation. You do not go anywhere alone." Mara nodded. "Will you call when I can? That is not often." "No. Will you come back?" Cole stepped closer. For once, he did not offer a beautiful lie. "I will do everything in my power." Mara breathed through the fear. "All right." His face tightened. "That is all. That is all I can ask from the real man." He kissed her, then slow and hard like he wanted to leave memory in her bones. When he pulled away, she touched his face. "Come home clean if you can," she said. "Come home alive if you cannot." Cole pressed his forehead to hers. Then he left. Waiting became its own kind of violence. The first day, Mara worked until her eyes hurt. The second, she reorganized the kitchen again, though there was nothing left to fix. The third, she trained with Marcus and hit the mat so hard her shoulder went numb. The fourth, she woke at 3 in the morning, certain she had heard Cole's key in the lock. There was no key, only silence. On the 5th day, a storm rolled over New Orleans. Rain blurred the city into silver streaks. Thunder moved across the river. Mara sat in Cole's office with his ring on her finger and a pistol locked in the drawer beside her, not because she wanted it there, but because wanting had become less important than knowing. On the 7th night, Marcus entered without knocking. Mara stood. "He is in the building," Marcus said. She did not run. She wanted to. Instead, she walked to the bedroom because that was where she knew Cole would look first. He appeared in the doorway minutes later. His coat was wet. His face was exhausted. There was a cut above his eyebrow and a darkness in his eyes that told her enough. But he was standing. Mara crossed the room. Cole dropped his bag before she reached him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "It is finished." "How carefully?" She looked at the cut on his face. "Violently." "Yes." The word was soft. Mara placed her hand over his heart. It was beating hard beneath her palm. "Are we safe? For now. For now is honest. For now is what I have." She nodded. "Then come to bed." He looked almost broken by the simplicity of it. Life did not become normal after that. It became theirs. Mara's design business grew. Some clients came because her work was good. Some came because they knew whose wife she was. She learned to live with the discomfort by making herself impossible to dismiss. If a client hired her out of fear, they stayed because she delivered beauty with discipline. She filled the penthouse with plants that did not die because Cole hired someone to teach them both how not to drown herbs in expensive pots. She brought in warm rugs, books, copper pans, paintings from local artists, and one ugly ceramic bowl from a flea market that Cole claimed to hate, but always put his keys in. Cole came home most nights, not all. On the nights he did not, Mara slept lightly and asked fewer questions than before, but never none. They made rules, imperfect rules. He told her when danger touched the edge of their home. She told him when protection began to feel like a locked door. Sometimes they failed. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes love looked like one of them leaving the room before saying the cruelest thing, then choosing to come back. 6 months after the wedding, Mara found out she was pregnant. She took the test on a Tuesday morning while Cole was in the kitchen making coffee. Rain tapped lightly against the windows. The city below moved in its usual restless rhythm. The second line appeared quietly. No explosion, no music, no warning. Just a small blue line dividing her life into before and after. She walked into the kitchen holding the test. Cole turned with 2 mugs in his hands. He saw her face first, then the test. Both mugs slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. Neither of them moved. "I am pregnant," Mara said. Cole stared at the broken porcelain, then at her stomach, then at her face. For the first time since she had known him, he looked completely unarmed. "Say something," she whispered. He crossed the broken pieces carefully and lowered himself to his knees in front of her. Not for drama, because his legs seemed to have forgotten their work. He placed one trembling hand against her stomach. "There is a child," he said. Mara laughed through sudden tears. "That is usually how pregnancy works." His eyes lifted to hers, wet and terrified. "How do I keep a child safe in my life?" The question was not about guards or locks or guns. They both knew that. Mara covered his hand with hers. "You give them more than protection." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do." He shook his head. "I know how to build walls, then build doors too." Cole closed his eyes. "I want them to have a choice," he said. "A real one. Not the kind men like me pretend to offer." Mara touched his hair. "Then we start there." Their son was born during a summer storm. The hospital room smelled of rain, antiseptic, and roses Cole had absolutely been told not to overdo and had ignored. Thunder rolled over New Orleans while Mara held the baby against her chest, small and furious and alive. Cole stood beside the bed, staring. He did not reach out at first. Mara understood. "Hold him," she said. Cole looked at her as if she had handed him the whole world and expected him not to ruin it. "I might hurt him." "You won't." "You don't know that." "Yes," Mara said softly. "I do." The nurse placed the baby in his arms. Cole froze. Their son made a tiny sound, turned his face against Cole's chest, and settled. Something in Cole's expression broke open. Not softened. Opened. Mara watched the most feared man in New Orleans bow his head over a newborn and weep without sound. Later, when the room was dim and the storm had moved farther away, Mara woke to find Cole standing by the hospital window with their son in his arms. City lights shimmered through the rain. Cole spoke so quietly she almost missed the words. "You will know my name," he whispered to the child. "But I will not let it be the only thing you inherit. You will know how to leave a room. You will know how to come home. You will know that love is not a cage, unless cowards build it that way." Mara stayed still, tears slipping silently into her hair. Outside somewhere down on the wet street, a trumpet began to play. Soft at first, then stronger. A slow jazz melody rising through the rain. No one stopped it. No room went silent. Cole turned from the window, their son asleep against his heart, and looked at Mara with the same intensity he had given her the night everything began. Only now the look no longer felt like being marked by danger. It felt like being seen inside the life they had chosen with all its shadows, all its costs, all its impossible light. Mara held out her hand. Cole came to her, and outside the hospital New Orleans kept playing.